club in there, which I won't mention. It was for medicinal purposes. You have your mac and cheeses. You have the nativity scene, which are really just a bunch of grumpy nativity presents. Notice that this is wrong and it's heresy. If you put your, hear this? It's heresy if you put your wise men in with the nativity. Okay, you will be going against what the Bible teaches. All right? If you remember nothing else, remember that the wise men don't go in your nativity scenes. They came years later. Action figure Jesus, of course. And for people on the go, there's dashboard Jesus. When Canadian Club was involved, they thought they needed to give me my Wash Away My Sins kit. This one here, I think was actually given to me with like some seriousness about it, but that person isn't here. But it's Santa holding Jesus in the nativity scene. There is the Jesus toaster. And that's it. That's all I brought, which is probably good. So for those of you who may be joining us online as well, we're doing a Zoom thing. Hey, Ray, are we, well, it doesn't matter if we're taping this or not. I don't. Oh, good. We are. All right. Beautiful. Recording it. Yeah, we don't have. So, you know, you bring me to one of those things. I want to talk about some of the ways that things have changed in ministry. When I used to get around, when I first started ministry, this is how I got around. I had a map, and I had to figure out what sector the house was that I was going in from the back page, and then you go to that page, and you have to kind of wind yourself there. You didn't have a phone that got you there by there. Back in the days of youth ministry, I hurt myself often. I had a lot of broken bones from skiing and snowboarding, and so one time after I broke my this was my shoulder injury. The kids put together, this is my Christmas present. This is if you've ever seen a toboggan that they bring you down, and they always made fun of the ski outfits that I had. So they got this dorky thing, and here's the oxygen tank that they put on me. That was kind of fun. They actually, more than once, Jim. More than once. So you'll want to be able to see this, and if you need to adjust, that's good. Do I need to have the landing lights on for this? I feel like it's really do I still show up okay on the screen? Maybe I'm not even an active. I don't know. It doesn't matter. All right, let's see. Here we go. Faith beginnings. So, little Timmy Dieffenbach. A towhead. I just heard it. That's what they used to call me, the little old ladies from Ross Reformed Church. My mom, Peg, my dad, Luke, my brother, Larry, my sister, Jewel, who was here earlier. I don't know if she stuck around. Our dog, Penny, which we're convinced is still living. She ran away from home. And I'm waiting for the prodigal dog to come home. But they were certainly, we started at Eastside Presbyterian Church. At age 5, that church closed in the heart of downtown Gary, and we went to Ross Reformed Church. Ross Reformed Church was the place that grounded me in my faith. And as you've already seen, the children's Bible was part of that experience. I had to learn my Bible verses. We memorized the books of the Bible. the Ten Commandments, the Lord's Prayer, the Apostles' Creed, the Heidelberg Catechism. With the exception of the Heidelberg Catechism, these were things that I all used in kids club here in terms of things that we taught our kids. We had them learning Bible verses, books of the Bible, Ten Commandments, Lord's Prayer, and Apostles' Creed. I figured if it worked for me, it might work for some of them. Some of you who have been in the RCA long enough will recognize IYF and RCYF. That's the youth group that I grew up in. And this is the only picture that I have of my youth group days that I could find. And this was in the basement of Bob and Janet Best's home. It was our Halloween party, and we made a coffin. And we made a coffin because of Connie Kuiper, who's a funeral director from Ross Reformed Church, and he had taken us through and kind of showed us probably the first seed of why I have been somewhat obsessed by the art of dying in my ministry, and have encouraged all of you to make a funeral plan if you haven't made one yet. Get that. Kent is going to have copies of that, but you should kind of lay that out and ahead of time. But I also wanted to just name some of those people who were important back there. And so Rich and Irene Eriks, Bob and Janet Best, Lon Eriks, a Sunday school teacher, Connie Kuiper, Harold Hartwig, and Eugene Youngsma, my Heidelberg Catechism teachers. Okay? And then Emily Mara. Emily Mara was 105 at the time, I think. She seemed that old to me as a little kid. But all through my college years and things, when I'd come home, Emily Mara would bake bread for all of us college kids. And it was just this nice little gift. My college career. Some of you don't even know that I went to Central College in Pella, Iowa to begin with. I left there not because they kicked me out, but because all of the people in the religion department were leaving either on sabbatical, had taken a new position at another college. One of my favorite professors had a wife who was dying, and he was taking a leave of absence. So I thought, all right, my sister went to Hope College, I'll try there. I went to Hope, I stayed there, had a beautiful experience. People like Denny Voskuil, Elton John Bruins, Robert Palma, Boyd Wilson, all people whose fingerprints are on my life. It was from Hope College to Western Theological Seminary, and for my brother in the group here, Calvin Theological Seminary also. Huh? When? Oh, that's right. Well, the word Calvin shows up. Notice it doesn't appear down here. Ooh. All these things kind of blend together in this place of my life. But I wanted to talk about kind of the shaping of ministry for me. Started here at Camp Manitoqua in Frankfort, Illinois. That's the dining hall where I spent 3 summers helping direct that staff. I was on resident life staff at Hope. I was the RA in Collin Hall, which was a co-ed dorm, pretty progressive for those days. We had women on one side and men on the other, not mixed in like they do in many dorms today. What's that? There were doors, and there were parietals. Parietals were visiting hours, and you could get written up if you showed up on the wrong side of the door after hours. I got married to Allison, and in 1985, which was in the midst of seminary life. I was a seminary intern at Bethel Reformed, 85 through 86. We experienced some issues with infertility during that time. You know that didn't last forever. We had Zach and Trevor. So Bethel was struggling in terms of numbers. Alan was going to leave. they were going to close the church, or there was some thought that they might close the church. George Brown talked to me and he said, "Hey, we have a position at Central Reformed Church for youth ministry." And we went, we checked it out, and so I left Bethel to go to Central and then stayed there for 18 and a half years. During that time, about in 1987, I think it's on the next slide, I became one of the speakers for Youth Unlimited and for Youth Builders. And I trained youth leaders throughout the United States and Canada. The deal I made with Bob Bedingfield is that I could be gone as long as I was home to run youth group on Sunday night. That was his big thing. It's okay to miss Sunday morning, but you got to be home for Sunday afternoon youth group. And he was very generous and actually very supportive of that time. Because he knew that I was gaining skills and things, because when you're with other people, they teach you things. Parenthood started in 1990 and 1992 for us. We were divorced in 1993. I put this up here because sex and sexuality was one of the things that, on behalf of the National Institute of Youth Ministry, that I spoke on often. And the CRC church, I made thousands of dollars off this seminar because they didn't like to talk about it, and so the way that this seminar began is, as I would always say to folks, the church teaches you that sex is wrong. Your parents don't want to talk to you about it. People in the locker room tell you lies about it. But, God really intended us to embrace our sexual intimacy in terms of relationships. And then I'd say, so I want you to do something with me. We're going to do it right now, just for old time's sake. And on the count of three, we're going to yell, "Sex is fun." 1, 2, 3. Sex is fun! Okay, there you go. You'll remember that. It was all about relational ministry, though. And it was certainly foundational to who I was becoming. Some other highlights during those years, Fran DeYoung. Fran DeYoung was the chaplain at Central College in Pella, Iowa. She knew that I was I was there on an RCA scholarship. And she invited me to lunch one day, and she said, she says, "I'd love to see you in chapel." And I said, "Well, I'm going to another church." So she pushed a little harder, and she said, can you tell me more about that? And I said, "Well, where I come from, we don't believe in women in ministry." And she said, "I understand that." And Ross Reformed Church, we had no women in ministry. It was one of those things, if you can remember the 1980s, was kind of that turning point in Reformed church history. And she was just very gentle and very pastoral. Well, eventually she broke me down and she got me to go to chapel. And I grew a relationship with Fran. And it changed. It was a transformation for me in terms of how I thought about women in ministry. And I'm grateful for it. Fran died several years ago, but I will never forget her as being a pastoral presence in my life. George Huntsberger and Chuck Van Engen were some of my profs from Western Seminary, and I list them both because they were both important to me, but I want to read a quote that stuck with me as well. So as my worldview was expanding in many ways, this book, A Clarified Vision for Urban Ministry, I came across this quote. "When I see a street person, I must not see a man with lice or mental illness, a man who may sell or destroy anything of value I may give him, a man who spent years on a mission program and gained little of permanent value because he's back on the street, a man content to sit idly in our chapel all day, day after day. Instead, I must see Jesus. If I see the man as Jesus, I am guarded against seeing him with contemptuous eyes." I remember reading that quote and just being overwhelmed by the fact that my eyes were filled with judgment in those early days. And it was a convicting moment, and I began to think about that and how it would impact my ministry, and I'm grateful for them. There was Jim Cook, or Don Brugink. He shows up not as a person, but in these pictures right here of both Greece and Rome. Don expanded my worldview in different ways. We walked through New Testament times in the early church on those trips. And for those who just came back from Turkey, you get it. When you go to those places and you tie story in with place, there's something that just gets woven deeply into your soul. And I'm grateful for that. Jim Cook was the most pastoral person I think I've ever met. I'm going to go on. Eugene Osterhaven. Eugene was, again, probably 70-some years old. He was really tall and big. Shane, uncle, right? Yeah? Used to do push-ups and things. He was just built. And if you wanted to not listen to what he was going to teach on, you challenge him in the middle of class to a push-up contest. And that was never me, by the way, but others. John Schmidt was the one who, in my seminary career, John shared with me that it was okay to be thinking about ordained ministry and being a youth minister, and told me the importance of having people in youth ministry who also have a theological understanding of the Bible. I'm going to talk about Robert Bedingfield first. That's Bob up in the corner there. I wish that I had a picture of him in our black robes and our celebration stoles, because that's the picture that I have of him when he would, during the words of assurance, come to the end of the chancel step, and he'd kind of just stand there and he'd say, "People of God, in Jesus Christ your sins are forgiven." And following my divorce, and following a lot of care that my elders and Bob had given me, it was on a Palm Sunday morning that, for me, the grace of God showed up in a very powerful way and said, "You can do this. You can move forward, and I can use you." And it was just a healing moment in my life. And Bob was a senior pastor, and he could be sand in my shorts. But it's nice. Brenda was just with him several weeks ago, and it's nice that the two of us still remember each other fondly and appreciate the good things that were part of our life. George Brown. This is George Brown. Some of you know who that is. George was the one who introduced me to Frederick Buechner and Henry Nouwen. And one of the things that I needed to learn about in my life was how to forgive, and what does forgiveness mean. Let me read you this from one of the books that George got for me that's actually signed by Buechner and passed along to me. To forgive somebody is to say to one another, "You have done something unspeakable, and by all rights I should call it quits between us. Both my pride and my principles demand no less. However, although I make no guarantees that I will be able to forget what you've done, and though we may carry scars for life, I refuse to let it stand between us. I still want you for a friend." To accept forgiveness means to admit that you've done something unspeakable that needs to be forgiven, and thus both parties must swallow the same thing, their pride. The quote goes on. It's a wonderful quote. But, you know, in a world that seems to have a lot of polarization, and as a pastor, knowing that that exists in some families as well, I would just encourage you to practice forgiveness and swallow your pride and move on. So then this is going to focus in on Central Reform years. Youth ministry was my primary focus. There are several of the youth that are here. I'm so grateful for the letters that I'm going to read later today or in the week to come. We started, some of my first youth leaders were here. Chamberlains, are you still here? Mary Usadell is. Mary and Scott were champions until they started having kids. I don't know why they did that. And then they said, we can't do this anymore. To have some of my first youth leaders here this morning was a gift. We started with 6 junior high and about 9 high schoolers. Two of those people are sitting in the front row over here. You may not know that I've known Kim longer than I've known Brenda. And Kim, we joke, you know that we have a long-standing friendship with Kim and Roger, but we joke about Kim being my work wife. Thank you for just years of friendship and support. But we went from 4 youth leaders to over 100 members and over 20 volunteers, and some of those volunteers are here. We used to go out and play darts at Chico's. We were a family, and it was a wonderful time. In the 80s and 90s, we were doing service projects. So here you see something that I had worked on with the youth team of the Reformed Church. We started a work camp for ourselves in the Reformed Church, and we went to Circleville, West Virginia is where it first started. We moved it to Neon, Kentucky. We built homes. So we would start with bare ground, put in foundations with kids, and we never, it was never the thought that we're not capable of doing this. Tim, who's sitting over here, was one of our construction guys who came with me on several of those things. Tim was, unlike your dad, God bless him, Tim would take the time to teach someone how to use a circular saw rather than just push through so that we could put up more boards. That was a gift. But we taught people skill. That's why I think, I'll come to your house and I'll fix things for you because I learned all of this on-the-job training doing that. We climbed rocks. We sang songs. I was really into experiential learning, and so we would do these initiatives for group building, and the one down in the corner there is the spider web, which was one of my favorite things. And actually, it takes place out in your woods, Dave and Karen. That was a retreat for something that we were getting ready to do. A holy moment. One of the things that I'll just never forget, it's kind of one of those pinnacle things. My youth chair at the time, Jane Brink, came to me with an idea, and we fleshed it out in our youth team. And it was a 3-day experience for every graduating senior. Now, the seniors loved it because we took them out of school. We started on a Wednesday night. They were out of school on Thursday and Friday of their senior year. And in the next morning, they got up, and from dawn to dusk, you couldn't talk to anyone. And in the midst of that, they had some ideas of things to do. Kirk Brink, I don't know if Kirk's still here, but Kirk Brink gave me some questions that they could ask. And one of the things was, go have a conversation with a tree. Now, you think that's goofy, but of letters from senior exit trips and experiences that are there, it's the thing that kids talk about, and the conversations that they had with trees were phenomenal. But I think about that. They also read letters from parents. Here's a couple of those groups that went on there. It was at Barothi Lodge. No TV, no Wi-Fi. Of course, I don't even think Wi-Fi existed then. I don't know when it started, but we didn't have it there. And so we were really just focused in on the conversations and trying to make that transition. And it was one of my favorite things I ever did in youth ministry. Matt, where are you? Okay. Elise and Tom didn't let their kids have sugar. Apparently. And every time that Matt could get near sugar, he would he just couldn't help himself. And the more sugar he ate, the funnier he got. So I let him eat all the sugar he wanted until he'd throw up. Schneider girls are there. Here's Rob Lutz again up in the corner. They're one of their youth leaders, Ryan Reinveld, who's sitting over there. Heidi, Flory, Katie, Adam, a younger, not Heidi, Kelly, a younger Kelly. That's Kelly too, by the way. That's not. The Brown boys, Sean Miner. Did I see Sean Miner this morning? No. All right. And then Laura Vandenberg. She's up there so I could tell this story. Laura was one of those people who was adopted, and her parents were Gil and Gretchen. And Gil and Gretchen, Laura was willed in her aunt's will. She was given a car, but it was a stick shift. And nobody knew how to drive stick shifts in the family. So this car was sitting out there, and Laura would say, I don't know why my parents won't let me find somebody to teach me. And so I said, why don't I, ask them if I can teach you how to drive a stick shift. So at the time, I was driving the Renault Alliance 1983 car of the year, by the way. That was a stick shift. And so Laura would come to the church. Gil and Gretchen would drive her down there, and I'd take her down to the funeral, or to the cemetery, just down from Central. And, if you've ever driven a clutch car, you know that the hardest thing to learn is how to go uphill, right? And stop and start and start again. So we're practicing this, and she actually gets the car going forward. I said, just keep going. Well, we come to a 90-degree turn, and the adrenaline's flowing in the car, and she forgot which was her gas and which was her brake. And I said, you got to slow down a little bit, you got to slow down a little bit. And we go around this turn. It's front-wheel drive, so, fortunately, it did at least follow the thing. But it was a gravel road, so the car started to slip, and all of a sudden, boom, we had knocked over a tombstone. The car was teetering on the tombstone. The flat part of the tombstone that the big stone goes on top of was what it was teetering on. And it's Laura and I, and there's no traction in the car because it's a front-wheel drive car. How do you get the car off the tombstone? We did, fortunately. And I had her sit on the front side that was down, and there was some traction there. And I don't know, we just rocked that car off of there. And amazingly enough, we didn't crack the tombstone. The big side, the side with the names and stuff piece that goes on top was there. And I don't know, a gift from God that I could get it back on top of the mount. But as I went through the week, I was thinking, the Willard family deserves better than this. I started calling her Willard from then on, by the way, because this was, and I said, let's not talk about this, right? But I was going down Kalamazoo back to Central. I forget where I was. I was probably at lunch at Kentwood High School or something. And I passed this tombstone dealer right after, I think it's right after the tracks, right after you go over the Elger crossway on Kalamazoo. And I pull in and I tell this guy, I say, hey, listen, I said, I knocked over a tombstone that I need repaired. And he looked like a grumpy old man. I didn't know what kind of a response. I said, but I'd like to fix it. I said, nothing's broken on the stone, but I said, it's not cemented on anymore. Just a minute. And he goes and he gets this toolbox and he comes walking out and he says, I'm not driving myself there. So I put him in, we drive there, and he says, now tell me the story about how this happened, and I told him the story. And he just kind of looking at me like going, you're a strange man. And he gets out, and he says, get over here. He says, I want you to just lean this out. And he took out the stuff, and he says, just put it back on it. He says, leave it alone. He says, it's going to be fine. So we get back. I said, how much do I owe you? He said, you don't owe me anything. But he says, you can bet I'm going to tell this story a lot. More of the kids from Central. Dan Bilesma, Carol was here. I don't know if she's still here. Carol's the one who gave me I know the plans I have for you. Sean Miner, a classic youth group member. The Weaver kids. One of the mountain trips that we did, my friend Nick, who came up to roast me a couple weeks ago in that picture. But creativity. So I'd always turn loose the creativity juices of my leaders, and we were planning a retreat. And they said, well, what if we have a casino? And I thought, well, He said, no, here's the deal. We're going to have this casino. Kids are going to earn money, but they have to pay for everything going forward on the retreat. They don't know that. So we get there on a Friday night. We start playing games. A bunch of kids won money. A bunch of kids didn't have any money at the end of the night. But we tied that into a theme that we used throughout it. And so generosity was certainly part of that. But again, it was one of those wonderful moments. We used to do, just like you did here, we used to do talent shows. You all know this little thing where somebody's behind with their hands and doing different things. This was a youth Sunday practice that we had, and I put that in for Aiden, who's not here, but he just did tie-dye shirts. Every youth minister does tie-dye shirts. More of the work projects. This is work in Belize that we did. We used to build a lot of outhouses, and we did ramps, and we re-roofed tin roofs. This is back in Neon, Kentucky. I know that the DeHaans were here earlier. I believe that's Mike right there, their son that died not long ago. Necker's children. This is Mexico, and we went to the dumps of Mexico. We took, actually I did this with my good friend Kevin Spots, who was at Christ Memorial Church. We had over 100 kids, and we split them between two different sites, and then we flip-flopped. It was a 2-week trip. And but we went and worked in the dump villages of Mexico. We would cross from San Diego every day. That was an unbelievable thing. We also did mini retreats, and so I would take just a group. I think that we limited it to a group of 8 or less, and we would do little mini retreats. And I said to Brenda this week, I said, I don't think I could do some of the stuff I did back then, but we went to Cabrini Green, and we worked on apartments there. And there were always these little friends that you see in the middle, cockroaches. It was gross, but I just watched kids that did something wonderful. And I want to read you about an experience. Come on. Here it is. I never really believed before that there was a God in Jesus. I've been much happier since, but I do now. I've been much happier since. I guess many refers to the number of people who went on the trip, but I don't believe our mission was small. I want to thank you for inviting me to be part of the group at Central. I was wary at first because I wasn't a Christian. I am now, and I'm happy with it, and with God, and with His people. There are just evidence of God working through things that I'm just glad I could be part of it. This was, Elise, do you remember this? This was, what was it, Plaster Creek that we used to clean up? Okay. So we're there, and Roger Bauer comes over and he says, hey, can you get the kids away from this area for a minute and then come back over here? And so we're standing there, and he says, look at that. He says, what does that look like to you? And I said, looks like bones. We called the police. They were human remains that we found during one of our things. And yeah, one of those weird days. Staff and leaders, Judy was my administrative assistant, my mother, my counselor at Central. Dear woman, you can see Kim back in the early days right there. Another one of our youth leaders that served faithfully, Tim Moreland. Some of our staff right there. Chris will recognize, and some of the others who have been to Ben's Hope, that's Eric Peterson. And I won't even tell you what else was going on. A few accomplishments. Hundreds of youth who learned about Christ-centered community during those years. Dozen who gave witness to accepting Christ into their life. I just read the letter. Several who went into ministry, and others who did short-term service. Heck, we have a deacon in this church who came out of those early days. There was growth in me as a pastor, a leader, and as a caregiver. Transition to Thornapple. So I was consulting with the youth ministry team here at Thornapple. It was something that Doug Honholt had connected me with through Jerry Nichols. And then came Tony Doster in the youth team. I met with them a couple times as they shaped the job description for the new person that you were going to hire. I made it clear that that wasn't going to be, that I was beyond the years of youth ministry, and I wasn't at all interested. And then I got called into the principal's office. And I thought, oh my gosh, what did I say in that meeting? You know, did I do something that they thought was awful? And Dave, Klaus, and Paul were sitting in Dave's office, big old office, by the way, over at Holland Home. And it didn't take long for Dave to say, we want to offer you a position. And I think I apologetically said, I'm really not interested in being a youth minister. And he said, no, this has nothing to do with youth ministry. But we've talked about this. Our consistory met. We sent out a challenge. We said that if we could raise, because they were already into the budget year, if we could raise the amount of money it would take to bring you on board for the year, then we knew that God would be in this. And help me if I get any of this wrong, but I think I'm close on the story. And Dave says, and what we ended up doing was raising 1.5 years of support for your position. Whew. I went home. And because the day before I had received a call from a church in East Grand Rapids, East Congregational Church, who were just really great people. It was very familiar to me, the style of worship and all that. And now I have this, and then there was this other church down, a Presbyterian church in Kalamazoo. And Brenda was not home. She was teaching during that time. And I just sat in our family room, and lo and behold, the Church Herald was sitting there, and I picked it up and I started reading it. And there's this article by Wes Granberg Michelson. And I read it. And Wes was reminding us that we all belong to one another, and common blood flows through our unbroken veins, giving life to the whole. We live as a body because we are called together in mission to a lost and broken world so loved by God. And then I went to the kitchen to get another cup of coffee, and this was what I was staring at. And it's the thing that is the Thornapple verse, one of the foundational verses, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And in that, it just continued to become clear over the next 48 hours that things don't happen by accident. And I felt very convicted to begin my ministry here at Thornapple Church. I was hired for congregational care, and so once I arrived here, I started learning the rhythms of Thornapple Church. I got to share what happened on my first night of employment. It was a Bible study night. We still had family night. We had eaten a great meal. Came upstairs, went into what was then the library, and we were having this Bible study. And the gentleman who was talking, who I won't say his name because you all know him anyway, all of a sudden swore in the story he was telling. Chris Murphy got up, grabbed a mason jar that was on top of the shelf, put it down in front of him, and he said, "Pay up." So I realized it was the swear jar. And he contributed several other times throughout the night. And I remember going home and saying to Brenda, I said, "You wouldn't believe what happened." Terry and Glenn Williams were still here, and Terry was running the children's ministry. And then they announced that they were leaving so that Glenn could take another job, which meant that there was going to be this gap in children's ministry, and that was the start of Kids Club for me. It's one of those things where when you're working with Paul Wesselink, nothing really blows him out of the water. He said, Nothing
phases Paul.
Yeah, nothing phases. He's just calm, cool, and collective, right? He says, we can do this. He said, you got to occupy those kids for 45 minutes while their parents are in choir in the Bible study, and it'll be fine. So we did that. We also started some other things. We did visits with seniors, or activities with seniors. And one of the trips was to go down. Some of you remember Dave. This is one of the antique cars that Dave had donated to Hickory Corners. What is it called? Gilmore. Yeah, Gilmore. That's John, who's since died. Jake and Betty up there. It was my ministry became truly congregational care between kids and whatnot. But probably in the same way I think of a holy moment with the senior exit trip, it was Friendship Pals here at Thornapple. And all these adults who volunteered to meet every 4 to 6 weeks with one-on-one with a child, although I see that either Pam was substituting, but that's Felicia Lowen with Pam King down in the center bottom, and some of these relationships have just really turned into long-lasting friendships. We began several other initiatives in the years to come. We adopted doing church as team. That's when we started team-based ministry. We talked about congregational care, and this was the first of 3 different movements we had in congregational care where people got called every year by their care team leaders. There were 2 in a thing. And then the journey team. another one of those things. I look back and I see Adam sitting in the back. Adam was on that journey team. John, Dave was on that journey team. Linda, John Stegmeyer was here earlier. Linda was on that journey team when we first started. Jerry Nichols was on that journey team. And one of the things was examine your mission statement, and then every 5 to 7 years, go back to it, evaluate it. And so since the very beginning of Journey Team, we've done that 3 times in our life cycle, and it's good. One of the conferences that Paul, Chad, and I went to had us ask if TCC disappeared tomorrow, who would notice? That kind of pushed us into some work in the community. We ate a lot together. We started events like the community egg hunt. Youth ministry continued with our own mission trips here, different group building activities. We increased our presence in the community. Over my time here, we've done 2 habitat builds. This was the dedication ceremony at one of them. We've done some continued work with volunteers in service. I became the chaplain. Some of our firemen were here today. And that's one of the ways we were giving in the community. That's Tad in the parade with me. We also started the All Abilities Ministry. And we're celebrating that in its 13th year. We've gone from 1 house to now 4. Plus we have MOCA volunteers, King's Table, and Friendship Camp up at Cran Hill, where we take volunteers from Thornapple and go up and serve during one of the weeks of Friendship Camp. I want to applaud Thornapple and encourage you never to give this up. You show up at children, youth, and adult activities. So I remember when Abby was in this, not the Littlest Angel, the best Christmas pageant ever, and like 40 people from Thornapple came to see her in that performance. But it wasn't just because she was the pastor's kid, because you do it for the Parlberg girls down at Civic. We even do it for adults. That's Dave playing in his Beatles band, and we'd go out and sit in somebody's backyard. We do it for our All Abilities team. That's Anna and at one of her high school performances. And we shared more meals together. I just couldn't not, put the pig there. I'm talking about this here, not this here. Oh, COVID. Enough said. We had to do some things differently. But look at his face right here. Worship has always been foundational. Even in COVID, we found creative ways to be together. We do outdoor worship, some musical things. We celebrate different liturgical seasons, baptisms. One of the adult service projects we did was flood relief in Houston. I was asking Ron yesterday if he remembered. I can't remember these people's name, and I can't find the folder that the thing that it's in. This gentleman right here was with our team. He's run for Congress in Texas since then. Family camp. Michelle? Big part of that. She was kind of our organizer for many years, and we do these camp competitions where we'd decorate our camps sites for different things.
You want to know how that started? We borrowed a very old motorhome from somebody we knew, and it was really old and really stinky. We called it a stunkmobile, and it was really hideous looking, and you enjoyed that fact. And maybe we should have a competition for the most awful looking campsite.
Yeah, you're right. I can smell it just it's yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, reflecting wouldn't be complete if I didn't talk about bacon and about the turkey extravaganza. Please sign up to volunteer for that. Over the years, 300 plus weddings, 75 baptisms, 200 plus funerals. Memorable moments. Calvin Hope things, pickleball with the staff, having the Vilkins come over and trick or treat at our house when we first started that relationship. Our buddy Jesse. If you ever go visit Nancy in Florida, you're going to go to Buc-ee's. Do you remember the sermon I preached in the lion costume? Yep. I'm not lion. The floating fish that we pulled out during one of Ken's sermons. Don't forget Jeremy and Carmen. I don't know if you knew that Paul always thought that he was Denny Crane. The firemen put this. They call me the Pope in the. And so one night I got home and Brenda said, "What's on the car?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I had driven home, gotten out of the car, walked right past it, didn't see it. That was the Pope Mobile. But before I began a relationship with the fire department, did you know I set the woods on fire over here? And they had to come and put it out. Staff Christmas cards, Kent with lice up there in the corner. You might not have known that either. I just wanted to share things. This is the Nepali church right there. I went to a few ball games, even went to the Cubs-Tigers game down at Tiger Stadium, and who do I run into but Jerry and Mary? Some walk alongside of friends that have been an important part of things. You'll probably recognize this. Let me say something about this group here. This is one of the rotations of our men's group. These are former colleagues from Central that I worked with. The men's group, we've been going for 30 plus years strong. Very important men in my life. Bruce Mulder was in the corner. I want to say thanks to my family, my extended family, my kids. Think about what it's like to be a minister's kid. You can't go away on weekends because dad's got to work. And if mom works Monday through Friday, we occasionally, we did some vacations and things like that, but it was a different life. We didn't let them go into travel teams, and then Aunt Jewel and Uncle George started saying, well, we can take them to sports events if that happens. And we did a few of those as well. But certainly, my thanks goes to Brenda. It's not possible without a good teammate. And from the mornings that she comes up and we pray before she leaves the house to, when I walked in from a meeting that maybe didn't go as well as I had hoped, and she looks at me and she says, "You need a back rub?" And I say, "Yes." I say yes anytime. But yeah. And thanks to all of you. There's so many other stories I could tell, but it's time to go. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. God's blessing on you. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.